Okay, so I'd like to introduce Graham. Graham Penning.
Hello, that was a nice clap. I normally don't really do teach people or talk to people. I have actual work to do, so that's a nice introduction. Basically what I do as a job, I make posters for bands, I work as a graphic designer for myself, I do a bit of illustration, I do a bit of web design, I've done a bit of animation work, for some stuff that's done quite well for big clients and small clients. I haven't always done that. We'll talk a little bit about how I ended up doing what I do, but unfortunately I'm going to talk about gig posters, which you might have an interest in or you might not. And if you're doing the project with the Chumbawamba posters, you're probably forced to have an interest in it. This is me talking to a captive audience about posters as part of a panel there. Unfortunately, these things can be really dull, so I'm sorry about that. This particular exhibition is something we put on in London. Can you guys see the screen now? There's not going to be tons of slides. We were lucky enough to be sponsored by Brooklyn Beer, and handing out free beers is a really great way to make people pay attention. So if we can just get, unfortunately there is no beer for you guys. I just try my best to be vaguely interesting. If you can try and pay attention, that's great, but it's not really needed. So the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try and say a few things that might be relevant to whatever you want to do as a career. There might be, I'm not going to go on and on about my posters, I'm just going to tell you some stuff. It's not going to be a design lecture, but I'm also going to write to you, because I think that's important. A really useful tool as you go on and do a design career is a really well-honed, functioning bullshit detector. So you pick out what is lies and what is truth. It doesn't matter to me. Question stuff, and you decide what's useful as you go on and do a career. So, and on a professional note, I don't lie to my clients, I only lie to students, because they're very cool. How did I end up here doing the job that I do? So, it's kind of a weird thing that I have to, any job, once it becomes a job, gets a little bit difficult. There's elements that you don't enjoy doing. I sort of have to remind myself that I actually have it pretty good. So last year, did a number of exhibitions. I got to exhibit in London, in Liverpool we had an exhibition. I went across to Germany, Barcelona. I was over in Austin, Texas, South by Southwest. My work was shown in Milan. All this really amazing stuff that I have to remind myself that isn't that bad. I'm my own boss. I kind of get up when I want, and I work on the projects I want. I work hard. Sometimes I'm lazy and I just do what I want. It is a job that a lot of people would like to have. Maybe you guys think that sounds all right. I may be able to give you some advice on how to get there. Remember, some of this is lies. So people have asked me how do you do that, and I've come up with like a flow chart how that's done. So I start at the top. The truth, of course, is I really don't know. You have to kind of come up with your own conclusions of where you want to go. The thing with me, my sort of career such as it is that I always vaguely knew what I wanted to do. I always kind of knew that I liked the idea of one day working for myself. I've always done design work as a kid. I drew and I designed stuff. So I've always had this vague idea in the future, but I've never really known what I'm doing at any one particular time. So you may get a sense of that as we go through the presentation. So I did actually attend college and I dropped out. I'm not advocating that you do that, but it's what I ended up doing. I didn't go to university. When I was about that age, all I wanted to do was be in a band. I just wanted to play guitar, I wanted to write music, I wanted to do all that kind of stuff. Some of you people may feel the same, and you may think that that is an achievable dream. It's very difficult, and it's not. So what I did in the kind of, I ended up getting a job out of college, not really design related. I ended up moving to Leeds because around the late sort of 90s and early 2000s there was a really amazing music scene here, a lot of kind of DIY punk bands and a lot of art shows and a lot of fanzines. Do people know what fanzines are? It's like paper, remember paper? You know, there's not a screen, you know, it's like, you know, photocopied stuff, and just a lot of people making their own environment to create music. So all my friends were in bands, everyone seemed to run a label, or everyone seemed to kind of do a fanzine or put on gigs. You know, we put on gigs in our house, we ran like a little, really small level record label for a few years. We'd send off and get records pressed in Czech Republic vinyl records, the real physical things, and we'd have like a little conveyor belt system in the front room. You know, we packaged stuff up, and all this really exciting, amazing stuff that you can't take for granted at the time. It's only looking back that I've realised kind of how such a great community and everything to grow. So I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't listen to people. I didn't really work very hard. I was incredibly irresponsible and dangerous at times. I just wanted to be in a punk band and I wanted to dick about. But there were, you know, the thing is, without me realising it, I did work hard for stuff. We organised gigs. We put on a bunch of stuff. Like I said, we managed to put out a few records here and there. My band got to tour and we travelled a bit. The one thing that brought me to art and design, even though I'd always kind of made those type of work, there's always someone's going to do a flyer or a poster or whatever for the band, and that was kind of always me. So, you know, it was always just pen and ink illustrations and a few copy and paste stuff, and run off on a photocopy of black and white stuff, and so I kind of became known as, you know, he's the guy who does the artwork for that, and it would be for record, you know, small labels, nothing big, it was all self-contained. But there were these other little similar scenes in different cities in the UK, you know, when you book your own little tour, you'd go off and you'd play these other places, you'd realise there's a ton of people doing really similar stuff. So I met some very good friends who they kind of did the same sort of work. We realised they were all dotted throughout this kind of music scene. There's people who are creating the visuals that go along with it. That it's not kind of just the music, there is a whole visual side to it that kind of documents it and pins it down. So if you think about it in terms of like a gig poster has the date and the venue, and it's not just a memory. If you've been to that gig and you know you drank a lot, you're not going to remember it. There's a physical memento of what occurred, and this idea that it kind of marries everything up started to become kind of important and kind of interested in it. So we realised that there was all these other people doing this kind of work, and that started to be more of my focus. I wanted to do more artwork for bands. And of course, you know, I wasn't a trained artist, I just got on with it. I just wanted to create stuff. When we had to learn how to make layout for record artwork, you kind of find the guy who'd done a so-and-so record and you'd say, how do you do it? What do you use? I taught myself on Photoshop. Because it was fun, you were making actual stuff, nobody was telling me to do it, we were creating things that sort of had some value, at least to us. And finding these other people making it, I think this is kind of an important thing. At the time, there wasn't, not everybody had kind of the internet, so a few of us, you know, we had dial-up in our house, and eventually we found a website called gigposters.com, which some of you may have seen. The guy who made that website also made the Gig Posters books. Clay Hayes from Canada, who's a very nice chap, very cool. Anyway, so we realised that there were all these other artists doing stuff, and you know, you could update your own posters and flyers to the website, and you can kind of, Clay was really interested in documenting all this kind of ephemera, all these little bits that might otherwise get saved or thrown away from gigs that document everything, and to see all this stuff was incredible. It just sort of made you think, wow, this kind of is art, because it's documenting something, it's kind of embedding it, and it's making it real. But the other thing that we saw was that, obviously, like at the time, we were just making a lot of photocopied stuff. It was cheap, you know, and there wasn't really much design involved other than just a cut and paste kind of punk aesthetic to everything. But there were these really incredible screen printed, beautifully handcrafted colour posters of, you know, all my favourite bands and all artists that I started to pick out. I think this guy's, you know, this work's incredible, and a bunch of us in the, you know, none of this was really happening in the UK. This seemed to be happening over in the US.